Welcome back to the Hoedown Showdown. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and that was Kryptonite by our first featured guest this week, Bree Taylor. How's it going today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Really excited to sit down and chat with you. I feel like this has kind of been in the works a lot longer than it really has. It's like we met randomly on Instagram and you messaged me and then I messaged you, and then it kind of just took a good minute to get squared away. But I'm glad we got this laid out.
Yeah, schedules are always crazy, especially during summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we're chatting.
Yeah, for sure. So you're kind of splitting your time between Canada and Nashville. You're in
Yeah.
Mississauga. I probably completely butchered that, but that's my big fat Midwestern tongue for you. Uh, so what was it like growing up for you?
It was a rocky childhood, I have to say, but I think that's probably why the songwriter in me is always connected to lyrics and music and songwriting, and the country scene has always felt like home for me as a songwriter and an artist. So yeah, it just was always been my emotional outlet. I've been writing poems and stories and lyrics since I was probably in like grade 4 or 5. So yeah, a long time.
And was obviously you've been writing for a really long time, but was music kind of always there, or did it just kind of naturally progress once you got older?
Yeah, so the cool story is I was actually born to music in the delivery room, and my doctor's name was Dr. Taylor, and I was born to a lot of James Taylor music. So my middle name is Taylor, and that's where the name came from. So I truly feel like it was something I was born to do, and I just
Nice.
always grew up with music around me because my family they're not musical, but they are music fans, and they've listened to a lot of music and exposed me to a lot of music growing up in different genres and sounds. So it's been kind of cool to grow up that way and to have so many different influences to pull from in my own music.
That's awesome. Who are some of those influences that you were listening to early on?
Oh my gosh, so many people. It's hard. Every time I get asked that question, it's like, how do you narrow them down? Obviously, Shania Twain was huge, especially being a Canadian growing up in Canada. My
Mhm.
mom was a huge Shania Twain fan, so that's very nostalgic for me. An artist that maybe not a lot of people know about, who's also Canadian, is named Amanda Marshall.
Mhm.
I grew up listening to her. She's got like a powerhouse vocal, and I just think that's kind of where I really like. I listen to these big voices, and I don't know if I naturally would have had that voice if I hadn't listened to these artists or not. No way to really know because I am just who I am now. My voice is what it is. But yeah, those are a couple people. Yeah, it's hard to choose. There's so many.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And so growing up, you were always, it seems like you were always creative writing, whether it's
Yeah.
stories, song, what have you. Where does like the passion for where do you think that where that passion for writing kind of comes from?
I think it's just because it was my emotional outlet. Like I was bullied really bad all throughout school. We had a lot of family stuff that was always like drama and
Mhm.
emotional turmoil that you go through during a childhood. So there was a lot of heavy stuff that I was put through at a really young age on an emotional level. And it was music was always something that I turned to. Like I walked around with my CD Walkman like all the time, and I'd listen to my CDs and my different artists and favorite people that I would always listen to. And eventually the iPod came out, and so like that was like my thing. I'd carry the iPod around, and I just always listened to music and loved the lyrics and stories behind the songs. And that's what I connected to emotionally, not just the sounds, but really the lyrics and the stories. And that's why country music always felt like the most natural place for me, because that's really all like country really is all about, right? Is the storytelling aspect. And I think for me to be able to channel those emotions and those negative experiences that I was going through into music and into stories and songs became just that therapy for myself, and it's just always consistently been there for me. Like music will never let you down. Like a
Yeah.
person will, it's always there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So kind of taking a step forward and fast forwarding a little bit, your album Dauntless, that is your first full length album, correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
What how long had you kind of been working on that album? Because you released it last year. How long have you been working on that?
So obviously, like COVID had kind of delayed a lot of plans with that. So it was originally started in the works around 2019 when I made my debut in country music.
Mm-hmm.
My first single, "Turn It Up," came out then, and we kind of had just been planning it that time frame. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know it was going to be what it ended up being at the time. I just knew that I wanted to put a collection of songs together and put out my first album and have vinyl and CDs and all of that. And so when I had planned to put it out was probably around 2020, when everything was going on. So it kind of pushed it back a couple of years. But it's, and then unfortunately, the title track "Dauntless" didn't make it on the actual album, but it is out there, and it kind of tied everything together with the delay of the vinyl production. So for my album release party, the single was out by that point. So it kind of tied it all in together. But the whole process was probably the most exciting thing for me in my career so far, because putting out a physical album is just such a rewarding experience to have something in your hands when you grew up as a little kid and you always thought I'd have a CD or a vinyl album one day. So
Yeah.
it was really cool to kind of see that come to fruition and hold those things in my hand.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. You brought up the difference between Dauntless, the album, and the single, and I want to get to that here in a second. But before we get too far away from something interesting that you mentioned, was that you made your country debut in 2019, but you were releasing music in 2018. What kind of made you, or why did you kind of want to make a switch and kind of put your foot into country in 2019?
Yeah, so I actually, funny enough, 2016 was when I first started releasing pop singles because I
Hmm.
started out doing pop music. That was really because of a producer in LA that I was working with that kind of told me at the time, you can't do pop country, which is kind of where I felt like I wanted to be. And I think he just wasn't able to do that for me. And so, obviously they want your business and they have their specializations of where
Yeah.
they work and things. So he guided me on the pop direction. And I've never felt like your typical country girl either, which is kind of what Dauntless the single also is about not fitting a mold
Mm-hmm.
into a box that somebody
Hmm.
wants you to fit into. So to kind of tie all of that together for you, that kind of is why I made the switch, because it
Hmm.
never felt authentic, because I didn't feel like pop was where I wanted to be. But pop country has become such a more like the blend of different genres. Like
Hmm.
pop and rock are two big genres I grew up listening to
Yeah.
and blended into my country sound and into my unique voice. And I never felt like my image or my personality fit like your typical, the typical country girl, kind of like that blonde girl with the dress and the cowboy boots and,
Yeah.
the quiet, meek girl. Like that's not me. I've always been outspoken, bold, and a little out there and different. So that's why Dauntless became such an important song for me to write as itself too.
Yeah. Always leave it up to a semi sleazy like promoter or producer to just want to get you in the studio and tell you, oh, you can't do that, but you can do this. That's
I mean,
always.
he meant well. I don't have
Mm.
any hard feelings. He's a great person and he was really a good part of me kind of getting to where I am now.
Hmm.
It's just unfortunate that it did take a little bit of a
Yeah.
turn, but I had to do what I had to do. And I loved all the music that I did put out as a pop artist, which is on my 2018 EP. I just took
Hmm.
off the singles off of all my
Gotcha.
stuff. So the EP is there. People want to still go back and sleuth down and hear the old stuff.
Yeah.
They can. I still perform live some of those songs when I have the long sets to perform at
Mm.
shows, and there's some favorites for fans there, but
Yeah.
this just feels most me
Mm.
right now where I'm at.
Yeah. So when you perform some of these songs, do you put like more of a country twist on them, or do you just try and keep them rooted in what they are?
I think my voice has naturally kind of gone a little more into my country roots that I had originally, like before all of that had happened. But also one of my songs, it's called "What You're Looking For,"
Hmm.
and that one was kind of my like hybrid pop country tune that I did from that album. And there are a lot of like country influences and a little bit of touches on that single that do sound that have that country kind of sound. So that's where it went. That was one of my favorites that I think I did. And when I did that one, it's kind of was like I'm just not feeling the pop
Right.
direction. I just knew where I was being pulled. So, but kind of we do our own thing with the live show. People have to come out and see a show to know what we're doing. But yeah, me and my band kind of play around, have fun with them.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. So the I guess the most important question, we've kind of alluded to the fact that you have Dauntless the album, Dauntless the single,
Yeah.
which why didn't the single make it to the album?
Because I had grant funding that I was
Ah,
very lucky to receive to produce finally the album, which I wouldn't have been able to put the album out without the grant funding, which I'm very lucky and fortunate to have had the Ontario Arts Council support me in that. It's in the disability arts sector because I am a hearing impaired artist. I wear hearing aids, and I've been really advocating a lot more for that and speaking up on my hearing
mm,
disability because it is something that I kind of felt not really embarrassed about, but almost like people would judge me negatively on as an artist for. And then I really embraced that and saw how much opportunity was in just not only sharing my story, but that I could have to work with people that could help me in the funding and the support in that regard. Because being an independent artist is a struggle. It's hard financially.
yeah,
So there was like a trajectory and a timeline going along with that. And I always and I wanted the right writer for that song too. So
yeah.
when I got to work with Styles Hari, who's a talented artist from like he lives in Nashville, but he's from Ohio, and I got connected with him, and he just really helped me write that song and made it what it is, and it wouldn't
Mm,
be what it is without him. So I believe in divine timing, and everything works out how it's supposed to. So it all came together, but it's just a little funny anecdote now.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I do want to congratulate you. Dauntless hit number one on Sirius XM,
Yeah,
correct?
on the station top of the country. Kind of it did its thing. They're
Hmm.
still playing currently and doing well, and it was just nice to kind of see it kind of do something exciting
Nice.
there and have their support. And it's meant so much to me to have top of the country supporting my music. So yeah, that's thank you. It's so exciting.
Yeah, when you messaged me that, I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." I got, it's to chart period is an achievement, but then to hit number one, it's like, wow, that's a completely different level right there. So,
Yeah, and I mean it's just satellite radio, so it's not like Canadian main country radio or anything like that. That's even tougher to
mm,
chart there for sure, especially as a female these days in music in America and in Canada. But yeah, anything is exciting and any support is greatly appreciated. And I've had the Canadian indie country countdown
nice.
as well. I've had like 4 or 5 singles go number one on there, so
That's
that's been really cool too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, before we jump into Dauntless here, I do want to give you the opportunity to plug all your socials and all that fun stuff. So, if people want to
Yeah.
listen to your music, see you perform live, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
I'm most active on Instagram. I'm getting really a lot better with TikTok, but I'm at Bree Taylor Official, and Bree spelled Bree with 2 E's because everyone asks me if it's Bree like the cheese, and it's not spelled that same way. And Bree Taylor Official, and I'm verified on Instagram, so the blue check mark is me, and I'm the real one. And then yeah, my website breetaylor.com has all my links everywhere. You can buy my album on there, support me if you'd like, and see where shows are playing and what's up next and coming up next for me. And yeah, it's exciting. There's some
Um,
things ahead. I'm excited. There's lots coming.
Amazing, amazing. I can't wait to I'm glad we connected on Instagram and can't wait to see what you got coming up and all the cool stuff you got going on. Always fun to kind of connect with an artist as they're ascending, and it's just like you get to sit there and watch that growth. It's really cool. But
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. It's been an absolute blast. And we'll be right back after this song by Bree Taylor called Dauntless.